Mirëmbrëma, zonja dhe zotrin, jemi me Argument Plus në televizionin Ministrine. Sante do të kemi si mysafir tonin ambasadorin, ish ambasadorin e Kosovës, tani më dhe drejtorin për Ballkanin, Ministrinë e punëve të jashtme të Gjermanisë, zotin Ernst Reichel. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for coming. It's a great pleasure and honor having you on the studio after a while for seeing each other. And I don't want to waste your time, and we'll jump to one of the main issues that we have been hearing now for the last weeks, even months now, the migration. Some argue that Germany is willing, and I'm saying willing, to accept some of the asylum seekers or migrants that are coming from Kosovo to Germany. What do you have to say to them, sir?
Well, the answer is a clear no. Those who come as asylum seekers have a chance of 0.3% to be accepted in Germany. And people who enter Germany illegally have no chance to stay in Germany. On the contrary, if they are caught entering illegally, they will be banned from receiving a visa in a regular fashion in the future. So I would really urge everybody, please adhere to the rules by which you can travel to Germany, apply for a visa, and do not seek asylum or travel across the green border. You don't achieve what you are seeking to achieve. And please think, that's my appeal to the people who are maybe thinking about traveling, please realize that if you sell your house, you take your kid out of school, you you leave your job and travel to Germany, you will find yourself back where you were within a few weeks or some months, and you won't have a house, your kid will have missed school, and you have lost your job. So this is the only people who benefit from this are those who you have to pay to get your transportation to Hungary and who then show you the way across the green border, maybe, if you're lucky. Yeah.
How big is that problem in Germany nowadays, sir? Since we have you in Kosovo, we have you in Pristina, is that a message that you have sent to the Kosovans, that the problem has become even bigger in Germany, that we see it from Kosovo?
It is one of the top news items in Germany in these days. It's on the headlines, and it's a matter of intense political debate inside Germany, and which is, by the way, the reason why I was asked to come here and speak to the people who are responsible and also speak to the general public here in Kosovo.
Have you found an answer why all these people leaving from Kosovo?
Well, I've also been wondering very much why exactly now all the people, or many people, decide they want to leave Kosovo and go to Germany or other European countries. And I learned a lot walking through Mitrovica this morning with the president. And what the people said was, it was all about the economy. And they were explaining to us their personal situation, where they couldn't kind of sustain a decent life here, and that they saw no other choice. Well, I understand very much if people are bitter and impatient and don't want to see that actually Kosovo has made a lot of progress in the last 15 years. I think that's out of question. But I think progress doesn't go fast enough for the people to be content. Mm-hmm. And so I understand all this, only traveling illegally to Germany is not the solution to this problem. Mm-hmm. We as Germany, we are trying to explain this to people. That's my first message, kind of. Please, if you want to travel to Germany, do it legally in the proper way. Secondly,
It's hard to get a visa from a German country.
It
pretty hard.
It can be hard.
You know that you're an ambassador here.
Yeah. No. It's cumbersome. You need to bring documentation and so on. That's true, but one shouldn't over dramatize that either. It can be done. Many people do it. Not only here in Kosovo, also in other countries in the world. My second message is we are preparing to do more to assist Kosovo and the Kosovo government in creating a better living for people here.
Okay, can you be more specific on that one than on that secondary?
Yes, happily. Yes.
What are you ready? Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. What is Germany ready to do for Kosovo to help it tackle migration and stop this flux of people?
Well, I mean,
because what we see now, it's decreasing. At least what we see from the bus stations, from the boundaries. We're not 24 hours on the boundary, don't get us wrong. But at least what we see, the impression is that it has decreased. Now you know better than we do the numbers and how it all functions. But how will Berlin help Pristina tackle the problem?
Well,
You'll bring in the suits with the money, the American way, as they say.
The one side is kind of taking measures against illegal border crossing.
Okay.
I wasn't going to speak about that right now, but there are measures being taken on that side too. But on the question of the root causes, and if my suspicion is right, and it was much kind of confirmed when I spoke to people this morning in Mitrovica, if the root cause is the economic situation, then we are prepared to put more money into, for instance, the creation of startups for businesses, or kind of for people to create a viable existence for themselves. We have identified €1 million to be put into Kosovo on top of what we do anyway, which is quite substantial.
How much did you say? 1
million. €1 million out of the budget the German Foreign Ministry. Taxpayers' money goes to Kosovo for a project to assist people to create their own business. And there's some more we have in preparation, but which I can't really specify at this point in time.
There was it's not yet confirmed, but there was a hope, and even given by the government, that they are trying to reach out to the EU member states and trying to persuade them that they should be thinking of having seasonal workers from Kosovo to EU member states. Like, would Germany be ready to assist the government in such a plan, sir?
Yes.
And how would that look like? What the figures of people are we talking about?
I can't give you figures on this, but it is already the case that Germany takes seasonal workers inter alia from Kosovo on individual application. There's no grand scheme, and there hasn't been, and I don't think there will be a grand scheme with a treaty signed, but in practice, what really counts is that people have a chance to become seasonal workers. We are also looking into how we can kind of enlarge the numbers, or enlarge the kind of the outlet for legal occupation in Germany. Also, this is in preparation. I can't give you details right now. But we are thinking about this because we understand that this has a psychological effect. Even though the numbers may be not tremendous, it is important to make people understand that there is a legal, regular, orderly way to migrate if one really wants to. And the fact is also, in such an orderly, legal way, Germany, we have demand for certain professions.
Indeed.
And so we welcome people who want to come to Germany from these professions. And what we then, when we welcome these people, have to think about in a second step is whether we're not attracting too many people from these professions into Germany, which then creates more difficulty, for example, Kosovo.
You went to Mitrovica, you said it earlier. You've met as well with Kosovo's leaders. But why just Mitrovica? A simple question. Why just Mitrovica? Is it the place that is sending all people have led the most from Mitrovica? Or that is symbolics of the north and the south again?
No, it had nothing to do with symbolics. The choice was made by the president.
All right.
But I do understand that indeed there seem to be proportionately more people from Mitrovica and Vuštri, by the way, who seem to have left or are about to leave than from other parts of the country.
Are you satisfied with what you heard from the leaders on the issue of migration, how they're tackling it, sir?
Well, I think the leaders are making a big effort. First of all, they are very proactive in informing the public, like I'm trying to inform the public from the German perspective. And they have, I understand, also kind of taken steps to address the trafficking of people through organizations or I would suspect criminal people who kind of make profit out of the desperate situation of people who then decide that they want to leave and kind of feed them with false information also. Yeah. So I think that, and so they have reduced, I understand to a certain degree, the traffic of buses to Serbia. I think all this is maybe the reason why we have by now lower figures than they were at the peak. Yeah.
Because the will, you think that there's a will still to leave from the people, but there's no mean from here to get from here to Serbia.
I think there's a certain segment of society where you find people who there's a certain portion of a part of the population with people who really want to leave because they have false ideas of that this will solve the problems they're having. And once again, I have a lot of sympathy for the people and their problems, only they got to realize that they're not solving their problems by traveling illegally. They're probably creating more problems.
Even more problem. Can those people be a problem stability-wise once they're back?
You mean when Kosovars
return? When they be repatriated?
Well, I think it is possible that in the end result, the social situation of these people, as I said, is worse than it has been when they left. And therefore, this is an additional burden on society as a whole. Yeah? If there's more people who require social security, all the children who have to go back to school and have to be reintegrated into school after they missed a period, all these are additional problems and strains on a system that is anyway not perfect. Yeah. So, indeed, yes.
Well, I've asked you, but I didn't get an answer. What is that? Because many blame the government for the migration. Would you agree with that, sir?
I think that's too simple. What's to blame is maybe a combination of many elements which lead to a psychological situation. One of the elements is the economic situation we have talked about. Another element is maybe the fact that we had this period of half a year with no government and no visible leadership in the country. There may be other elements such as the violence that we saw in the streets, which may have
It has happened before people, the protests.
Well, yeah, certainly it has happened before, but I think in this magnitude it was something exceptional.
After the protest.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure there are many psychological factors which play into this, where mere logic doesn't give you an answer. But yes, I think so. I think and the government, again, if we speak about the economical situation, it is probably not fair to kind of say that if I am not a wealthy person, it's the fault of the government. Let's bear in mind where the country was in 1999 and where we are today. And I think everybody, if one does this comparison, everybody understands that Kosovo has moved forward. Only my feeling is it hasn't moved forward fast enough for people to be satisfied. Yeah.
Yes. That's why even some say that instead of tackling the dialogue with Serbia, Pristina should be much more doing its homeworks, like meaning increasing jobs, making more jobs for the people, creating new jobs, and having the economical prosperity much better than that. Would that fit into it?
I'm skeptical about this because experience in many countries of the world, including Germany, shows you can't, by government policy, create economic growth. You can create conditions for economic growth to take place, but the actual activity has to come out of society itself. And it's not like you can do only one thing and not the other thing. I would even argue that the results of the dialogue are a contribution for a framework that allows economic growth. I mean, the people who are traveling to
even
Serbia, they are benefiting from a result of the dialogue, namely travel between Kosovo and Serbia.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So, talking about Serbia, will it really be conditioned to either abandon Kosovo by choosing its European path or not? So,
I didn't understand that.
Since we're talking about Serbia, will Serbia be at any specific time be conditioned to either abandon Kosovo, like from its constitutions, from its political mindset, and continuing to EU path or not?
Well, the EU has taken a political decision, that it expects comprehensive normalization between Serbia and Kosovo as a precondition for Serbia's accession to the European Union. Now, of course, you can ask the question, what is meant by comprehensive recognition? And my answer is, it's better not ask right now. Yes. One of the conditions for this process to be successful is that we don't already speak about in full, clear terms about what is supposed to be coming at the very end. And why this ambiguous
language? Why do we need to have double understandings, one in Pristina and one in Belgrade?
Well, if there weren't different understandings, agreements to disagree on this between Pristina and Belgrade, but if they would be fighting over this, we would not get a solution on the status issue. But we would for sure not advance on the practical issues which we're trying to solve in the interest of actually the people here. Yeah? So the way to go is to gradually accumulate normalization in many fields across the board. Next thing is maybe the telephone code. And there's a succession of decisions which kind of introduces Kosovo into international organizations. The last one was Kosovo's membership in the International Olympic Committee.
Indeed.
So to accumulate all these gains, practical gains, and then in the end, when the time has come, then we speak about the big issues, and then we either agree on the big issues or we find a way of handling them, but it is much too early today. If you want to achieve results, it's much too early today to speak about these fundamental issues.
How long can it take?
Well, it kind of depends. There's a correlation between the path Serbia, and by the way Kosovo to a certain degree, takes to advance to the European Union, and the normalization process, because the clear is at the end there must be comprehensive normalization, and that's a precondition for Serbia to join the European Union. So one cannot say how many years Serbia will take, because there are many other factors which are connected to that, but whether it's 7 or 10 or whatever figure you want to find, is at the end, we will have a situation where we come to the question of what comprehensive normalization means in clear terms.
Clear terms. Talking about those in terms that you have, we had Madam Chancellor who gave a quite strong message when she was last in time in Kosovo, saying that talking about the parallel structures, you know pretty well how they do function. Don't have to remind you because you know the place, you know how it all went from since the end of the war. That hasn't been fulfilled yet, sir. The abolishment. We have an agreement from the last time that we saw that both prime ministers meeting in Brussels on the 9th, but since then there are still courts and even civil society, civic offices actually that Serbia have, even in Gjermanise, which is 15 kilometers from here.
Yes.
Not talking about the north at all, I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's broaden the picture somewhat. Of course, it's also true that through the normalization agreement of April 2013, Kosovo has been able to establish communal structures elected by Kosovo law in the entire country.
Indeed.
But it's also true what you say, that we are in a situation in which Serbia still maintains parallel structures in Kosovo. And I think it has to be clear that at the time where the Association of Municipalities, which is foreseen in the normalization agreement, is established, that this is the end of any parallel structures Belgrade maintains in Kosovo, and the Association of Municipalities, which I've mentioned, is of course a Kosovo state structure and not a Serbia structure.
I think that it should be the one that's going to manage then the entire administration post Serbia's one that it financed in Kosovo?
We haven't even started to speak about the Association of Municipalities and what competences it should have. This is going to be one of the issues to be discussed in Brussels now. But if you read up the April 2013 statement, it speaks about the establishment of the association under Kosovo law. And my understanding is that this means under existing Kosovo law.
Yeah,
so this kind of gives you a partial answer to this question.
Yeah, but even some argue that we might have a sort of a cantonization or a sort of a small Republika Srpska inside of Kosovo, because are we creating a third power or not? Will it have a third power, or will it be, as some interpreted, an NGO?
Well, I don't think
it was meant as an NGO, correct me if I'm wrong. But some do sell the idea that it's going to be an NGO.
I think it is much more useful than to play around with these words, to have a look at the Constitution and to have a look at the law on the law on I don't know what the exact title is, municipal administration. It gives you quite a few answers on what an association of municipalities does, and this provides a framework for further discussion, which is going to take place in Brussels. So it is, of course, I understand when people say we don't want this, we don't want that, or we want this, or we want that. All this is part of the political debate that surrounds this, but let us try, I would appeal, let us try to be practical and look at the issues and not throw politically loaded terms at each other. It doesn't help really.
It doesn't help at all. Are you satisfied? Is Germany satisfied with the pace of the normalization between Pristina and Belgrade, or the dialogue as such?
I wouldn't say that we are satisfied. The normalization agreement of April 2013, to that was attached an implementation plan. And this implementation plan had a duration of 6 months.
Indeed,
and
I remember.
Today, we are still not there. We still don't have implementation. This is why it is so important, I think, that we insist, and that we really do, we insist that there is full implementation of the agreement, and that this you cannot kind of attach new demands to something you have already agreed in the past. So
now you're addressing to whom? To Pristina or to Belgrade?
I'm not speaking to Pristina here.
You're not. Because some in Belgrade, you know, the Chapter 35, Belgrade still awaits the Chapter 35 to be opened, and they know that the normalization with Kosovo is a precondition and implementation, full implementation of the agreement. Will there be any setback into it? Because Serbia has gone really way ahead. So Kosovo has not even started. The MSA, apparently, what they promised lost. Mr. Hahn was here yesterday, and he was saying that we might see the signature, but the implementation, it will enter into force only early next year, the MSA with Kosovo. So how and what if, because many say that if Serbia enters first into the EU, then Kosovo is definitely not going to join, because they might put a veto into it afterwards.
Yes, I mean, the one thing to say...
I'm pretty much sure that Germany and the big stakeholders of the EU, they have in mind that what if Serbia enters first, and then Kosovo, what would be left with it?
No. The first thing to say is, to be very honest, it's a fact of life that Serbia is ahead of Kosovo.
Oh yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And I can't imagine a scenario in which Kosovo catches up the lag that it has, the distance it has to Serbia in the EU integration process. So that's a fact of life. Kosovo is an independent state for 7 years now, so it didn't have the chance to kind of get into the mode as early as Serbia did. But indeed, it's clear that we have to avoid a situation in which Serbia, once it is an EU member, vetoes Kosovo's EU membership. But that's I think I would tend to say maybe that is part of what I would consider normalization. Yes, but this is something we don't have to kind of discuss and decide just now, but this will come in the process of discussions between Serbia and Kosovo. It is already enshrined in some papers. It is, for instance, if you look at the normalization agreement, there's a sentence that already says this.
Both countries, none of them
should block the other. But I don't see Kosovo blocking Serbia anyway.
Yeah.
So
wishful think about it. I don't think it will happen.
No.
Not nowadays. Migration vis-a-vis the liberalization visa. How much did it damage?
Well,
because there's an electoral promise back from 2009. We know that we heard plenty of promises from each political party when they think and if they come to power, when will they lift the visas for the Kosovo citizens. But we still have to apply. And we still remain the only one isolated in this peninsula.
I agree, visa liberalization is a sad story. I think many have underestimated the difficulty of this process. One could have known from earlier visa liberalizations that it's not that easy to fulfill the requirements. But the situation is the way it is. It is difficult, and it will take more effort from Kosovo government structures to fulfill all the requirements. There's a lot has been done. There's no question about that. But we're not there. This is the one part. The other part is, aside from the technical, we now have this immigration wave, and that's the way politics are. It adds a substantial difficulty to visa liberalization, and everybody who decides to go illegally to the EU should realize this. The reason is simple. Visa liberalization does not mean that anybody is allowed to stay permanently in the EU or to work in the EU. It's only for temporary visits. And so if already with existing visa requirement, we have this enormous wave of people who want to go to the EU. How many would be going if it's completely easy? If they can just they don't even have to cross the border illegally, but they can just go if they have an identification. That's at least the consideration many in the EU who are responsible for security matters and migration issues will make. And so I think it's unfortunately a fact of life, that this is an additional difficulty that is being added to visa liberalization, and therefore it's very important that this wave of emigration stops, that people decide to pursue legal ways of traveling, and that then we can return to the merely technical issues.
It's going to be difficult, but I mean, when you say that it has to stop, the one thing that I can't understand is how can it, and how can the government forbid, or the state, and whatever you want to call it, how can it forbid its citizens not to cross to Serbia when they do have?
I agree.
That's what I'm saying. How can that happen?
I was not speaking in this moment to the government.
No.
I was speaking to the people.
How can it stop, sir?
No, I mean there's a certain degree of illegal migration that always exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has never
and
stopped.
that has no direct relevance to issues like visa liberalization.
Yes, we understand.
But in the current situation, it's simply a fact that this really has an impact on visa liberalization. If it remains, that's an objective thing, and even if I don't have the magic wand to tell how to stop this immigration wave instantly, all I'm saying is as long as it exists, we have an additional problem.
Yeah. Most of the people, when I listen to us, they will say, yes, you have come to Pristina and told the government you have to stop it, you need to find a sort of a manner how to deal with it. There is no magic wand, as you're saying. It's impossible to do it. You can't stop people at the border. Is there any plan that was given to you? Because it was mentioned by the government. We have a plan once we have it repatriated, once they're leaving. What is the feedback that you're getting with you to Berlin, sir?
Well, I mean, I already spoke about the measures that the government has taken, and I do believe that a very important element in these measures is to inform people about what their decision to leave means for them, for the country, and secondary is to improve their livelihood here as much as one can do, to offer legal ways of traveling and to encourage people to pursue that, and finally maybe to take steps against criminal activity in this area, and thereby make it more difficult for people. I mean, not to offer them a bus trip, ready-made, buy a ticket and go illegally to Germany. That's not necessary. There shouldn't be a scheme ready for people who want to break the law. I think all these are elements, but none of this is, of course, the idea that will completely stop this development.
It's going to be difficult. What we hear lately now, there have been plenty of talks for the special court. You're pretty much aware of it. There's just days ago where there was the draft law even presented at the Parliamentary Commission, and we hear very little of it. What do really the EU want from Kosovo to do? What does Berlin actually want from Pristina to do with regard to the special court?
Well, I mean, we have an agreement. There's an exchange of letters between the EU and Kosovo. It has been ratified in Parliament. So that contains kind of the parameters of the special court as it should exist. And now what we're only speaking about is how this is transposed into Kosovo law. This is in principle a technical transposition of the agreement found into the law here in Kosovo, on the basis of further agreements which are being negotiated or have been negotiated inter alia between the Dutch government, and the Kosovo government. But I think the really important thing is to understand Kosovo, for its own credibility and for its own, how should I say, in order to be have a clear conscience, a clear a clear picture to present it to the outside world, has to deal with the allegations that exist and the possible crimes that may have been committed. And only if Kosovo shows the willingness to do this proactively and understands that if it wants to be a fully respected member of the international community, it has to deal with its past, like others have to, then only then I think the interests of Kosovo are really served. If there's a big fight, resistance against justice being made, that sheds an unfavorable light on this country, and I don't think that anybody will want that. This is why the government, why the parliament has adopted this exchange of letters, even though it was not easy psychologically. Everybody understands that, and this is why this exchange of letters has to now put into practice through the legislation that is being prepared.
But still, Kosovo, I mean, the international community has dealt with the past of Kosovo's past during the war, and we had even at the ICTY, International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, we had 3 trials where the Kosovo Albanians were as well there from the former KLA commanders, but they were all released and found non-guilty. Now, it's like some interpreted that they want to trial just the Albanians and not the Serbs.
Well, if you take a look at the decisions taken by the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia,
yes,
you will find that those convicted are not, or Albanians. Hardly Albanians, yes, but others. So you shouldn't look at this tribunal in isolation, but see it in combination with the ICTY. And if you take that bigger picture, I think nobody can say that anybody is targeting specifically Albanians. Only there's a piece of the picture which hasn't been fully covered, which is contained in the well-known Marty report,
yes,
which we also have to have a look at, and through the means of justice and objective justice. Yeah? And if anybody feels he has to resist justice being brought to this, and light to be shed on this area, then the impression given is that there's something to hide. Yeah?
There's no question of something to hide. There's questioning into why should Kosovo have a special court, which is going to look like the Hague Court, correct me if I'm mistaken. But then you had Serbia, you had Croatia, you had Bosnia, who went to war, and none of them had a special court.
They only had the ICTY.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Which has passed a big number of judgments against Serbs, Bosniaks, Croats. So my plea is like not to look at a
single Hague tribunal only for those allegations made by Dick Martis that the KLA has trafficked, and all the allegations that I'm not going into details, but all those allegations Dick Martis, which they all aim at the KLA.
Yes, but I mean, you're addressing a technicality, namely whether there is one court that covers all, or a small specific court for these allegations. Yeah? And I'm arguing that it doesn't make a difference whether one would have had a big court that covers everything, including the matters contained in the Marty report, or whether one has the ICTY on the one hand and a smaller specific court on the other hand. What really counts is that everybody, regardless of which ethnicity, regardless of anything else, if there's reason to, is brought to justice.
Do we agree that it's going to look like a specific Hague ICTY, but just for Kosovo? Instead of ICTY, it's going to be ICTK?
That is, I mean,
Kosovo was even part of Yugoslavia, sir.
Hey, I mean,
you know that.
I've been following this debate for quite some time.
I know.
So I understand that this is the way this is portrayed here.
Yes,
and
indeed.
ironically, this is the way it's being portrayed in Serbia as well.
Yes.
But
is it false?
I think it's not convincing for the reasons I described. I think we have a stretch of history which we need to cover in full through international justice. And I mean, in this particular case, it's not even international justice in the strict sense of the word. It is a Kosovo law, a Kosovo court under Kosovo law, which is, however, entrusted to international lawyers. So international lawyers speak justice, do justice on the basis of Kosovo law. So this is, if you like, even a privilege
it
given.
Sounds nice when you say it, but I'm not sure if it's going to look like really that way. It sounds nice when I hear
I can't help the way it's being portrayed in the media or in the public discourse here.
Yes.
But this is a fact. Yeah. I think there's too much. I mean, I understand the psychology and everything, of course, but I think one has to kind of take a step back, look at the big picture, and understand that nobody is singularizing Albanians or the KLA, but that this is part of the historic picture, and this is actually a chance for Kosovo to put an end to all these allegations which one could not relieve oneself from. If once this is taken care of, whether there are convictions or not, then this matter can be closed. And Kosovo does not have a stain on its jacket, kind of. Yeah.
Before we finish it to the very end, when is there any planning when Madam Chancellor might possibly visit Kosovo nowadays?
I have no answer to that. I simply don't know.
What about our Prime Minister visiting Berlin?
Well, you should ask him the question. He is, of course, welcome in Germany, no question about that.
Mr. Ernst Reichel, thank you very much for your time, sir. Great honor having you on the show.
It was a pleasure.
As a guest. It's good to have you again in Kosovo, so we missed you for quite a while. Although you're an often visitor, you come from time to Kosovo, you definitely do. Zone e zotrim ishte zoti Ernst Reichel, drejtori për Ballkanin e Ministrine e Punëve të Jashtme të Gjermanisë. Neve shkëlqejmë këto emision të Argument Plus dhe lëm takim sërish javë të jashtme. Natë mirë dhe mirëmbëjtje.